Today I'm out here in my greenhouse getting ready to clean up these raised beds and get them ready to possibly even do some early planting of like lettuces and colder weather varieties of vegetables. I'm going to clean them up, but first I'm going to show you something that I've been doing in this greenhouse that out of all the things I've tried over the years to extend the growing season a little earlier and a little bit later, I finally found something that, at least for the cold weather vegetables, the lettuces, kale, and things that you eat leaves of, beet and turnips, something that you may be able to do easily in a greenhouse of your own. But I'm going to show you what I did this year that took my green leaf lettuce and different varieties of things like that, took it clear up into December, and then when finally a big cold snap hit, I'll show you what happened, or what I think happened that caused it to fail. Or I think actually if I'd have kept just enough moisture on these vegetables, and if that one event hadn't happened, I think I'd have probably still had green vegetables in here right now. So I'll show you what I did. So all throughout a greenhouse, you'll have areas, little microclimates. And if you can create places that will gather up sunlight and store it as heat and then release it at night, if you can gather up little areas and create little areas where microclimates keep that warm on your vegetables, then of course you'll keep them from freezing, and that's all that matters, is those crystals destroying the flesh or the leaf. And then in the next morning, when the sun hits it, you'll end up cooking it or frying it, that plant, after it's frozen. So this area in particular does very well for me, and this isn't something that I invented, it's just the way I'm using it. But I have barrels stacked here full of water, and all they do is during the day, they're painted black. The sun warms up the water just a little bit. It doesn't have to be a lot, just a little bit. And then at nighttime, that water quickly releases its energy. But if you can keep these temperatures to stay just above freezing, well, then you've accomplished all you need for these green leafy vegetables. Also, here I have these are just trash cans, plastic trash cans. They're black. They are also full of water, and they're mostly buried. So they're going to actually bank some of their heat into the ground underneath. So at night, that heat from the ground is going to be returning to the water and releasing. So this area in here is a very nice little microclimate anyway, but my success was really in these beds, and they don't look it right now. But buried all around these beds is this black garden hose. And this black garden hose is just a circuit of flowing water that goes through several places in my greenhouse. And I'll show you that in a minute. But with that circulating water, you know it's not frozen, so it's above 32. It's not frozen if it's circulating, and it's releasing that heat as it flows through the hoses. So what I did was I wanted to keep that heat on the plant leaves, and I really wanted to be able to just not even worry about them, but only come out when I needed the lettuce and we'd harvest. So I put these hoops up, and then I went and got these shears, and these are like window curtains, but they are see-through shears, and basically just made a tent over the top of this area. I'll probably expand this and do this on a bigger area this year because it worked so well. This allowed any moisture from down there to get through it, let the leaves breathe, and it held another microclimate right there on those green vegetables, and they produced, well, okay, So in those shorter days, vegetables do have growing requirements in that their root system needs to be a certain temperature for them to continue growing, and they do need a given amount of light and a length of a day. So there wasn't a lot of growing, but there was maintaining. So they were very slow in their growth, and you couldn't harvest it like you would in the summertime when lettuce especially is growing so fast that if you're not picking it, it'll bolt up and be done. It doesn't grow that fast in the winter. It grows very slow, but to have it and have it fresh is a really neat thing, especially when you've already got the greenhouse here and it would just be sitting idle with no plants in it at all. The shears are the answer for me, and I'll show you how I keep that water circulating and how I keep it at a above freezing temperature. So back here is where I get my water to make the loop that maintains that heat in that bed. Actually, it circulates through several beds here in the greenhouse. So without doing anything else, I can already just add hoops and more shears and have this same system going, because not only does this work in the winter, it also works in the summer, because this greenhouse gets stinking hot during the daytime. It's actually nice to have a cooler temperature of water circulating to keep your plants cool in the summer. So what you see here is the top of 2 barrels, and they're buried in the ground. But what you don't see is this hole is very deep. In fact, it's 2 barrels deep. I took 2 barrels and I cut the top and the bottom out of each of them and stacked them up, so they are basically a liner of a hole. That one there is 3 55-gallon drums deep, and again, they're just stacked up with the holes in the tops cut out. And if you understand the principles of a siphon, where you remove water from one container to the other, I have this hard line that comes from that barrel and around, and it circulates around here and ends up going down in here. This set of drums has just like a fountain pump in here that's hooked up to the hose, and that hose just circulates that water throughout the greenhouse. And when I pull water from this one with the pump, the siphon pulls it from that one, and believe it or not, there's also another barrel planted over there, another barrel there, and another barrel there. So I've got 3 more barrels down in the ground, and each one of them are connected by siphon. So at the rate that I pull the water from this one, it draws it from that one, and as that water starts to go down, it draws it from the other ones, and then the pump is just circulating that water back around to the first drum in that chain. And in doing that, this probably doesn't collect a lot of sunshine and heat, but it does hold that ground heat. So I'm getting our ground temperatures at 3 feet deep here. You're looking at 50 degrees, somewhere around in there. So I've always got water in contact with that ground temperature down there. And even in the cold part of the winter, when I was testing the water at the other end of the hose, it was in the low 40s, and that was after it had gone all through the greenhouse and made its way back to that first pump. So this is where I'm getting my heat, and my only cost is to run that pump and circulate it around. Of course, it runs all the time. It wouldn't have to run in the daytime. I could put a timer on it, but if you do that, and right here is where I think my breakdown was in the system. I've got a hole in the plastic right here, and I believe that the water froze in that line going from that barrel to this one, because I came out here. These barrels had pumped all the way down to where the pump was, and that one still had its water. It didn't break the siphon yet, because the bottom of the siphon hose was still down lower than the water level here. But I think this line froze, so that would be the risk you'd run into if you shut it off during the day. It's better to just keep it running all the time. Now, this system works well enough that I'm going to show you a couple more things in this garden that even without hoops and even without the shears, it kept my plants alive, and I'll show you. So here's one of these lines that runs, and here growing just in this area where this hose is at, I've got onions that are well on their way, starting to pop back out for this season. I left them there because they hadn't matured enough last fall. Now they will probably shoot up a seed stalk since this is their second year and create seed, but I could still eat them, I suppose. But yeah, this little area in here, even though it was really close to that area, that's the cold wall, still maintained heat. Then down here, this is some variety of kale. And again, this is out here's my cold wall. But this kale, that's another barrel of water, and that kale that was grew and laid up on that barrel of water had enough heat that even though it got into the teens here and was under 20 for like a week here in Indiana this winter, and that kale's still fine. This kale down here just happens to be growing right on top of one of those lines, so it was getting heat evidently, and it maintained enough heat in this little area right here that these lines circulating water kept enough heat on there to keep those colder temperatures from killing this, and I'm really impressed by that. So that's kind of a long description of what I did here, but you're probably thinking, that's a lot of work to do all these planting barrels, and it was, but these were small steps from other things that didn't work or that sort of worked, and then I added to it. But a person could easily create a small microclimate in their greenhouse just by having barrels painted black with water in it, and then having them on the ground and growing right in front of them so that they're releasing their heat down on it at night. It's just really about getting it from sundown to sun up the next morning. So that is what's worked for me. I hope that somehow you can figure out how to make it work in your greenhouse, and maybe you could even do some warmer weather vegetables by tenting and maybe supplying another heat source, maybe a small heater, or try something, fail at something. I learned so much in this greenhouse by the things that didn't work, and now it's got me all these steps to what finally worked, and it's very simple, and it's probably someplace I should have started, but I've learned so much in this greenhouse planning, and so yeah, I hope it works for you. Give it a try. Thanks for watching.